everybody, welcome to the Android class. This is lecture number 1, and lecture number 1 is basically going to go over the syllabus. I don't have to go through all of the bhacker.com stuff because you guys already heard it. Is there anybody here that wasn't here for the object-oriented Java class? Okay, that settles it. Alright, so what are we going to do in this class? I'm going to try and do a little bit of Java programming as well as the Android stuff. But this particular class is focused only on the Android development. It uses the same tools as the Java class. So the same Eclipse, the same Java. So if you have it installed for the Java class, then you'll be ready to go for this class as well. So this class is going to use the SDK that's released by Google to basically provide the library support that we're going to need in terms of our programming environment. And the library support actually adds on, and I'll show you right now. Bring up Eclipse one more time. I'll show you how that actually works. Because hopefully you're going to install Eclipse with the Java. So you're going to get all that. So this stuff I just previously went over with you. So now when we go new, you're going to get this Android project that's going to show up. Or you're going to get the option to say new project, and you're going to be able to select it from a list under here, and it'll say Android. So on some of the installs, I've noticed it when I was doing the workshop a couple months ago, the newest version of it, of the toolkit, doesn't actually give you this option up here. So if you go over here after you've installed, and I'll show you where to find those videos in a few minutes, after you've installed the Android plugins that you're going to need, you are going to go to this menu, and you may or you may not find Android Project. So if that happens to you, go to Project, click on Project, and see if you've got this Android tab, Android folder. If you don't have the Android folder, then you're in trouble. And how are you going to get that Android folder? Next Wednesday, I'm going to run through the install for you, but I don't have a computer that does not have it installed on it right now. And if you bring your computer on Wednesday and you already have Java installed and you have Eclipse installed, then we'll do the Android install from there, and we'll have everything installed all in one shot. If you want to do it at home before you get here, which is also another choice that you can do, you go to the bhacker.com website, go into summer 2012, click on the Android link, and then what you're going to end up looking at is the Android tools install, which is going to be a text file. It's a bit outdated, however. The video is more up to date because I just redid the video on it. And the video is going to be right here. So if you could just keep going down a little bit further, you'll see the Windows install, Windows 1, 2, 3. You'll see the Mac install, 1, 2, 3, 4. Or your Ubuntu install, a little hello world thing. I'm going to do this for you next week in class, though. But it's going to be impossible to do everything. I mean, it's within a couple hours, it's going to be impossible for you to download Java, download Eclipse. So if you have all that stuff there, you're halfway there by the time you get to the Android. And then we can install the Android stuff, and it'll run a lot easier for you. Again, you can do it on a Windows PC. You don't have to use a MacBook. If you have a MacBook, I see a lot of people have Macs. This is great. Macs better. Macs are better than PCs when it comes for development. It's just easier. If you have it, you already have. Did you already have Java installed? Yeah, that's good. Yeah, he actually. There's a guy in the back who didn't have it installed, which is kind of interesting. You might want to run the update actually, because there's a couple of updates that have recently come out. You know what? There was a couple of viruses, believe it or not, that came out for the Mac, and the updates actually protect it. So. But I think they were leopard viruses. I think they were kind of old. They weren't the newest one. So it doesn't really matter actually if you have a MacBook. It doesn't really matter if you have Snow Leopard. Actually, it still works. If you're using the iPhone development, then you got to go with the latest and greatest Lion version. Do you have Lion? Okay, good. So if you don't have it and you have Snow Leopard, you can. Do you have Lion back there, or do you have Snow Leopard? Lion. Oh, good. Okay, you're in good shape. Otherwise, it's like $15-20. You can update to Lion, no problem. But yeah, no, you want to go Lion for that. Are you in the iPhone class? Yeah, if you're taking the iPhone, you want to go Lion because the newer SDK only works on that. So, but But this is Android, so let's not talk about iPhone yet. So if you go back to the syllabus, we have all the tools are free. You don't have to worry about that. Works on a Windows system as well as a Mac, so you don't have to worry about that as well. If you are taking the iPhone class, however, that does not work on a Windows system. That only works on the Mac. So in this particular class, we're going to be going over the Android Toolkit, which is going to be menu-driven, which is not going to be too bad. We're going to build a bunch of projects. It's really going to be a project kind of based course. And the assignments for the course are kind of run the same way as they will be for the iPhone class. It will be project-based as well. So it's an introduction to the SDKs. This is brand new from the ground up. You don't have to have any experience at all in Android. Actually, you don't really even have to have any Java experience either, especially if you're taking both of the classes together. The phones themselves are based on Linux, actually. You don't even need an Android phone. There's a couple of emulators, and I'll show you those emulators next week. One of them runs through VirtualBox. Other ones run through just the regular old emulators that come with the SDK. You're probably going to want to upgrade to the VirtualBox variety, even if you're using a MacBook, because the emulators just suck. There's no comparison between iPhone and Android. iPhone wins on the emulator route. However, there's a big difference, however, in terms of what the emulator is supporting. For the Android environment, and next week I'll bring in an Android phone. Actually, I think I'll bring in my tablet, and I'll go run through the entire Hello World kind of thing for you after we get through the install of the tools. And so that runs on a phone, any phone. You don't need to pay Apple for anything. You don't need a license. Anything Android-based, anything from 2 point something or other, or 1 point something or other, actually, all the way up through 4 point whatever, all the current versions, all compatible, all works. You just plug in the device, you drag and drop, you put it on the phone, you unplug, you run it on the phone, no problem. Cannot do that with an iPhone. With an iPhone, all the testing has to be done on the computer. So that emulator is definitely a little higher grade. Has to be, because you can't test any other way. Unless you pay Apple $99 a year, you sign up for their account, and you become a developer, and then you have to just go with a digital certificate, and I'll show you how to do that, but it's a lot more complicated. So Android by far is a lot easier in terms of the phone support and the device support and testing. However, it's slower. Emulators aren't as good, but there's aftermarket emulators that I'll talk about next week. Wednesday. So as I mentioned before, the Android operating system is Linux-based, runs on a Linux operating system, supports Java, supports C, C++, actually, believe it or not, supports multiple different languages and interfaces, supports HTML, JavaScript, supports SQL, SQLite, actually. It's just like a computer, actually. So when you write programs in Java, you can write them on a computer, you write them from the Android phone. Pretty much the same program, actually, in a lot of different ways. The object-oriented concepts are the same, which is a bonus, because you only learn the object orientation once. Use it on Android, use it actually applies to the iPhone as well. So we're looking at a Linux operating system. We're not going to really build any Linux kernels. However, you could build your own Android kernel if you wanted to by using the automated tools that are available out there. In fact, you can build an Android kernel that works on an Intel processor. Works on non-Android devices as well. A lot of embedded systems these days are run off of Android kernels because it's easy. And here you have this proprietary piece of hardware that you've put together that you don't have an operating system for. Get one of these pre-packaged Android kernel kits, whatever, configure it, run it. There you go, you got an operating system. So not a bad flexible operating system, runs on a lot of different devices. Let's see, supports Java, obviously. So the Java programming language is going to be used with superior GUI development capabilities. Okay, so the development that we're going to get in the object-oriented programming class is going to be with Abstract Window Toolkit, AWT, and with Swing. Believe it or not, the two of them actually work on the Android phone. However, you don't even have to mess with that. The Android GUI interface is XML based. So it's all menu driven. It's all drag and drop, put it on a canvas. The interface development is extremely easy. Easier than the iPhone, actually. So we don't really have to venture out too much into XML either. But I'll have a lecture on XML, and I'll talk about that throughout the course as well. it's all GUI development, it's all event-driven development. And it's kind of intuitive, actually. It's not too bad. How much Java programming do you really need to know for it? You need to know object orientation in terms of the object concept, how to create classes. Everything is a class because it's written in Java. However, we're not going to cover the same topics in the Android class as I will in the object-oriented programming class, because we're looking at just Android-specific functionality, which is a very limited subset of everything that there is in Java. So it's definitely narrowed down, but the focus is more on application development and on GUI development and getting the particular environment to work for you. Hopefully, and what I'm adding to this class that I didn't actually cover too much in the last class is the Google Play. So hopefully I'm going to get into it. I've got a lot to cover in 8 weeks. But to get your app into the Google Play, so hopefully I will, in fact, maybe somebody in here will actually create an app and we'll be able to put it in there, but it's free. Actually, I shouldn't say it's free. It's like $15 or something like that. You have to sign up for a Google Play account. But you can put as many apps as you want in there, and it's a one-time fee. It's not an annual fee. And you can actually see it in the market. So actually I have a Google Play account. I've put recently actually just put the ITU Android app in there. So I'll put another app in there this term. So you can, and I'll just run through the process with you. So by the time you leave the course, you should be able to create apps and put them in the market. So beyond that, it's finding yourself a decent job in that development. There's a ton. Okay, let me talk about Android development jobs for a second. Ton. Remember back when the SiliconValley.com first started? And I don't know if none of you guys were probably here, but nobody had a website. The internet, what's that? And all of a sudden the internet boom, and then everybody had a website. Ton of jobs for developers to develop websites. Now the biggest thing is every company needs an app. So we have tons of companies out there. I would say about 40% of the market's got apps right now, 30–40%. They don't even know what they need the app for. It's like, why do people need websites? Now all these different ideas for these different types of apps, they're all going Android. Well, a good percentage of them are going Android because it's an easy way to get, and then they're going to do both. So Android's an easy start for the company because it's cheaper and it's free. It's free and it's supported on a bunch of different platforms. And there's a ton. If you compare the number of tablets out there, more Android tablets than there are iPads. What you got on the you got one. You got the iPad. However, the iPad's pretty strong in the market for only being one device. So there's definitely a market for it. Companies have to do both. So, which is why the Mobile Device Development Certificate Program is designed for both. Because you can't get away with just one or the other. You have to do both, actually. So a lot of the jobs out there are to take one app and convert it to the other platform, vice versa. Or it's this company that says, oh, we need an app. We don't have an app. It's like we don't have a website. Everyone needs an app. So everyone's getting an app. So what do they need an app for? So it's a lot of creativity. You almost have to, it's like people who do website design. You almost have to come up with features for them. Oh, you want customers to be able to make appointments. Let's say you're a dentist office and you need an app for the dentist office. Well, you got to make, appointments, cancellations and stuff, And a lot of those apps actually have to work with servers, or with other programs and things. So I'll talk about communication, client-server communication in this class. I'll talk about distributed systems a little bit. Talk about connecting through the internet using web services, which is really easy. Actually, all this stuff is pretty easy. But a lot of these apps have to network with other apps or with other features, and sometimes they have to connect with other devices and other things as well. So we'll cover some of that stuff. But I don't see an end in the future. I do not see an end or a plateau. I don't even see the plateau yet. Eventually, I would say another 5 years or so, definitely the market's going to be flooded with apps, and it's not going to be as much business as it is now. But right now is actually a really good time. It's a really good time. In fact, the jobs that are out there are paying really well as well. I mean, you can't find anything for under 70, which is not a bad job, especially if you're just out of school to make $70,000, $75,000 a year. It's not actually bad as entry level. in the old days, I say about 10 years ago, it dropped. When the market went bad, it dropped down to like 50, 60,000. You know, it is mid-career. So, however, if you get experience, you get in at 65, 75, it jumps. These app developers are making over, 110, 115,000 a year. Easy. And it's fun, actually. I enjoy it. It's fun work. But if you don't work full-time, there's a lot of part-time, actually. There's a lot of side contracting. There's a lot of jobs. That's all I can say. There's a lot of jobs in this category. So I highly encourage you to seek it out. And the way you seek it out and the way you get those jobs is to show yourself, which is kind of easy, especially if you start out with the Android market, because if you put something in the market, it's your portfolio. It's your way of saying, hey, here's proof. I can do this stuff. It's here. It's kind of like an artist that takes and creates pictures, and here's my photography, here's my pictures. Well, a lot of employers say, do you have anything in the market? So that's why I say I'm trying to encourage everybody, especially if you're in a certificate program, get something out there, even if it's a stupid little tic-tac-toe game or something, because hopefully you can do something a little better than tic-tac-toe, something a little bit more ingenious. A lot of these games, however, are fairly simple. They're not complex. In fact, I'm sorry?
They make a lot of money out of it.
And they make a lot of money off this, because you put it in there, you sell it for $1, and you get 1 million people downloading it.
What's the latest one? Draw something?
Draw something, yeah.
Your friends guess?
Yeah. There's another app for, they call it crowd computing. There's a ton of apps, like they have a central server, and people put questions out there, and other people answer those questions. And it comes in instantly. It's like the crowd who's computing, who's answering the stuff. Yeah, yeah. And they, for blind people, they take pictures, and they say, what is this? And with the phone.
It's a bird.
And then they go, oh, it's a can of tomatoes. Oh, it's a this, it's a that. And then they get back, and it goes voice-to-speech, or text-to-speech, whatever. So they don't have to see anything. They just hold it, press buttons. It says, can of tomatoes. And it's it's actually pretty fast. I would want to say those probably, that's really ingenious actually, but I want to say it's probably, different times a day perhaps, I don't know. But you think about the world, there's somebody awake at any time. So if your server is getting hit by people all over the world, just because you're asleep doesn't mean they are. So.
If they make enough money, they could host more servers.
Yeah, yeah. But long story short, anything, even tic-tac-toe, I don't know, tic-tac-toe is kind of stupid, but, drawing programs, I don't know. You got a lot of kids apps. There's a lot of kids stuff, games. I've always been surprised at how long games, people never get bored of games. I mean, or, actually even the Angry Birds is pretty stupid, if you think about it. Not very complex. And you know how much money they made on that sucker. So, but, it's kind of like, as I was mentioning before, it's kind of like the beginning of the internet. It's kind of like the website stuff. Everybody has to have a website. Before, if you didn't have a website, well, now if you don't have a website, you're not a real company. In the beginning, it was, well, if you have a website, maybe you're not a real company. People kind of thought, you're kind of sketchy. Now it's the opposite way around. So the same thing is actually happening with apps. So if you don't have an app, you're not in the century, where are you? You're not a real company. You're not big. So people are just having people make apps for them just so that they can be part of the bandwagon, which is where all these jobs are coming from, most of them. So, and you think about the concept, though, it's revolutionizing computing. We have our device that we carry with us that we want to buy movie tickets, we want to go here, we're going to go. Everybody has to be on the same system if you want that traffic. So, who knows how long it will last, however. Course objectives. Upon completing this course, you're going to have a basic knowledge, hopefully, techniques in developing applications for the Android. This is Android phone. It doesn't really limit you just to phones, tablets, and phones. It's an identical platform. In fact, you'll find that with the iPad as well. iPad, iPhone, same thing. Different interface, different GUI, different dimensions. Pretty much similar feature set. There are some differences, however, in the feature sets. On the Android device, you don't have to specify a separate SDK. On the iPhone, you do, actually. You have to say iPad or iPhone. Here, it's one size fits all. So, a little bit different. I'll be going over that next Wednesday. This coming up Wednesday. So you'll be able to understand Java programming as it's related to application development. As I mentioned before, it's not a full programming course. It is going to assume some basic knowledge. However, I'm going to start out with Hello World. Very, 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 very brief, and hopefully integrate both of these two classes together if you're taking both. Knowing and how to acquire resources for security information. I will have an entire lecture on security, SMS, maps. The interesting thing is a lot of it's downloading and certificates, it's installing stuff, setting codes, doing certain things. It's not really programming. It's following a process, following a procedure. Once you get familiar with the process, all mapping programs work the same way. All SMS programs are working the same way. Using the content providers, every content provider pretty much follows the same format. All intent programs follow the same format. So we'll have a thing on content providers. I'll have a lecture on using intents. I'll have a lecture on the networking components, the database components, all the little different pieces in terms of the puzzle. Getting familiar with how to publish Android applications in the Android market. Actually, not really the market anymore. It's called Google Play now. So, and how to create various different types of applications using the phone services and features, different things. Required equipment. Any Google Android phone is suggested but not required. You don't need a phone. You can use the emulators. If you don't have a phone, actually, there's no excuses. You can even get like a tablet for $50, I think, these days. Go to Fry's, buy a cheesy little Android something. It's worth the experience, especially if you're going to try to get a job in this market. It's worth the experience to know, copying onto the phone, run it from the phone. It's worth it just to go through the drill, the practice. That way, there's no questions or anything. Everything works the same way, just different SDK. If you do buy one of those cheesy little $49, $50 little tablet things, there's a lot of them for under $100 right now. They're usually small, they're thick, and they're usually running old Android versions. Try to get the newer the better, because there are some ice cream features that didn't exist. So if you want to keep current, make sure you get a device that's going to support the current SDK version. I'll go through that probably Wednesday. I'll go through the SDK versions. The only problem with the little $49 devices, and the reason why they're $49 is they're not going to support. They're going to do 2.1, 2.2. Do not go past don't go under 2.2. 2.3, 2.2 is about as low as I would go. If you can't get anything in the price range of $50 and a 2.2, 2.3, don't buy it. It's too expensive. And, you should. Things in the 3.0 to 4.0 price range are usually $150. So don't pay $150 for a 2.2 system or 2.3 system. And don't go Galaxy or Samsung unless you really want an investment. So they're a little bit more pricier. If you go non-name brand, it's the same Android system. So it doesn't really matter what brand. If you want something to play around with. In fact, I'd just go on eBay. I would just go like on Craigslist or eBay or something and just buy a used cheap little thing. You don't need phone service or anything on it either. 99.9% of them support the internet as well. So you want the internet connectivity because a lot of the app development is using the internet someplace. So in fact, a lot of companies are getting apps built. The app is communicating with the website and they're working together. So for testing, the internet is good. And the reason why you want to test on a phone or a device is because some of the emulator features aren't supported. So example, you can't do Bluetooth anything, can't do USB anything, you can do the internet. The internet works. The mapping is simulated through a debugger. So if you really want to kind of test in a true environment, you want to get a device that maybe has GPS and has the internet. Would be good. So, Bluetooth, a lot of them come standard with all these features, even the $49 ones. Textbook. This is the old book. This is coming from the syllabus that's on the bhacker.com website. I have a newer book, the Deedle and Deedle Android book, and I forgot to bring it with me today. I was going to bring it, so I'll bring it on Wednesday. But if you go to Google, and the reason why I like these Deedle and Deedle books, actually, I don't own stock in the company, I probably should. How much I support the company. Deedle and Deedle, let's see. Let me finish my sentence, however. The reason why I like them is that they're cheap. They're like $30-40 for a book compared to $100, $150, $200 for your standard old textbook these days. They're like half the price, and they're really good, actually. They're a good investment. This one you probably will end up keeping if you get this book. It's the Android, let's see, Chapter. Here it is right here. It's this is the book. I was going to bring in a copy of it, but I forgot. The name of the book that I highly recommend, and here's the information for you, is Android for Programmers, an app approach. It goes through about half a dozen different apps, and one of them actually is a tic-tac-toe game. So, but it does, there's a text messaging one in there. There's actually a bunch of cool starter apps in there. And you can actually, without even buying the book, you can go and download the code and actually play around with it as well. However, the book is like $30. It's not a bad investment. And there's a newer version of it coming out, actually, so you can probably get this one here with the red cover. This is the old version. Probably can get it for even less than $30. But it's a tutorial-driven book. It goes step by step, stage by stage, and what you end up with is building a bunch of apps from it, which is not a bad idea, because that's the way you learn programming, is to build stuff. You can't learn programming by listening to someone talk, contrary to popular belief. Doesn't work that way. How do you learn programming? By doing assignments. So let's talk about that. So the Deedle and Deedle book, this is also a good book. However, it's a bit dated at this point, and I don't know if they came out with a new release of it. The problem with the books is the same problem you get with the iPhone books. Every month, every 2 months, there's a new version of the SDK out with new features and new this and new that, and everything's changed. So the book becomes outdated too quickly. And that's why the Deedle and Deedle book is actually, there's a new version of that coming out to support the 4.0 version, which the current book doesn't support, actually. Okay, so the grading. We have a final exam. It's going to be in class. It's going to be June 2nd, same day as your other exam. Could possibly stretch it out on another day, but it shouldn't be that big of an issue if you're taking both exams together. It'll be multiple choice. There will be no programming on that exam. It'll be, comprehensive, covering the entire content of the course. CSLO essay, which I'll talk about in about 4 weeks. It's sort of like the midterm for this class. What is it? It's just basically an essay assignment, because this is a graduate level course. We are trying to get you to write, so improves your English, gives you practice, stuff like that. The bulk of the course are going to be these 5 programming projects that are worth 10 points each. And the programming projects are actually kind of challenging, but they're doable. They're not too bad. And you're going to find out within the next couple weeks here that most of them are pretty much done for you. There's no excuses. There's tutorials. In fact, they're all coming from the Android development site. I'll show you that in a few minutes here. Actually, I'll just bring it up right now so I don't forget. I think was it developer.android. Actually, we'll just go to here. Here we go. Developers is your other best friend. Developer.android.com. You don't have to do the index. It comes up automatically. Most of the apps that you're going to be building are coming from tutorials. They're on this website. The tutorials are pretty up to date. Tutorials are supported on all of the SDKs. Wednesday, when we download the SDKs, we'll download the sample programs as well, and I'll show you how to do those and how to run those. And that's going to be a really good resource for you. So what I'm saying is as long as you know how to find the resources, find the information, the stuff is done for you. It's not as challenging as you might expect. However, you can make it more challenging by actually doing it yourself and working through the examples. And the more you work through it, the more you're going to learn it. So it's to your best. In fact, it's to your best knowledge to be available, to be familiar with the resources, because the resources actually help a lot. As an example, the Bluetooth sample code, some of the internet sample code. There's packages and interfaces for HTML, for CSS, for JavaScript that runs on the Android phone. So the more resources that you're familiar with, the more flexibility you have in your development. In fact, you can write an entire Android program using HTML and JavaScript. I don't recommend it, but you can actually do it that way if you want to. But if you have a case in which you want to create a website that works, that you're accessing and you're translating stuff back and forth between the app and the website, you're going to find JavaScript actually to be a good resource for that because it'll interface with that website. So, long story short, this is not bad. If you're not familiar with this website, go ahead between now and Wednesday, take a look, browse through it. You'll see that there's going to be a lot of stuff in there you're going to be interested in. Source code examples are going to be number one. Don't download any examples, however, because we can get it right from the Eclipse tool set. We don't have to do it from here. But if you don't know how to do it from the tool set, this is what other people do. They come through here. But I'll show you a better way of doing it. Academic dishonesty. So, I have to mention it because it's a very important thing these days. And in terms of what we're looking at is that these are the things that you're going to get those emails that are float around at the end of the term. They're going to say, hey, do you have any assignments for this? I know all of them, actually. Now I have even a bigger pool because I have the new ones that were submitted from last term. And if you turn something in that somebody else has turned in before, you're going to get a 0 on that assignment. And it is, in this particular course, 50%. It's a significant chunk of your grade. So you're probably not going to want to plagiarize. You're not going to want to resubmit work that's been submitted before. And I guarantee it, everyone will receive one of those email messages, or they'll get something from some news group or some list or something, and say, hey, you have any assignments for this class? It's like, yeah, don't fall into that trap. Otherwise, you'll be unlucky at the end. Standard grading scale. Here's the course schedule. Course schedule starts out in a week format. It's the same as the other one. It runs in 15 weeks, but this class only runs 8 weeks because we're reading twice a week. And so tonight is the introduction to Android phone application development. Wednesday night we'll be installing the tools and configuring it. Fortunately for you, this class on the first night doesn't really have very much because Android's actually easier. Teaching Android's easier than teaching object-oriented programming in Java. It's not so bad. But I can't do anything until you have your computer set up because there's no sense in explaining anything to you, especially if you can't see it. So, what you're going to do, I hope, bring a system with you next week. I see a lot of people have it, which is good. And I will definitely have more power, as I was mentioning before, more power strips for you. Would it be helpful if we had tables? Would it be helpful if you guys were going to bring your systems? Would it be helpful if you had like a table, or is a desk okay? I think table would be better because I should set this room up with tables. Because if you guys are going to bring systems with you, it's easier, I think, that way. Because I can have this room configured with tables. I was looking at yours. You have a small computer, but hers is a little bigger, and she's got stuff in her lap and stuff. And if you really want to learn it, seriously, if you want to learn it, you got to have a computer in front of you. You got to run, especially when you start, and you got to get your system configured. And it's easier for me if you have something to look at. Otherwise, you're just going to be sitting here looking at a PowerPoint. What's that going to teach you? Nothing. So for Wednesday, I'm actually going to have tables in here. I'm going to work on it. So bring your system. So all right. So if you showed up at, if you were in the Android, this is it for the Android, and we're done for tonight. If you were in the object-oriented programming class, you found out that Android's going to start at 6:30. However, I know some of you guys just walked in. I'm going to start this over again in about 20 minutes at 7:30. So if you missed the first part of this, stick around. You'll hear it again. If you were here, we're done. So bring your system next week. Get the Java installed. You don't have to install the Android stuff, but get your Java and get your Eclipse installed, and then we'll run through the Android stuff. And I'll have a computer that doesn't have it on there, so we can mimic it. You do have to have wireless access though, because you'll have to download it, and it won't be too bad. We tried to do this during the workshop, and it ran like a snail because everybody was connected. But we don't have that many people in this class, so it won't run as slowly. But within at least an hour, you'll have it installed completely. And then that way you can run through and at least have some some start on the right foot, on the right path. So, okay, so I'll see you Wednesday. Class starts at 6:30 on Wednesday. I'll send a message out as well. And if you were here, sign that roster.